Hey everyone, this is Dan Kuj, and today I wanted to make a video for a Torghast beginner tips for Windwalker Monk, which is the class I currently play. And I've heard a lot of and seen a lot of complaints about Torghast. Either it's too hard or too easy, but I think the general consensus is that a lot of people are having some trouble, and it really is luck of the draw, honestly, for most of the run. There is a bit of a gear check because the more you go up in layers, you start facing enemies that just they get an enrage timer, and basically the longer the battle lasts, the harder they hit. So I just want to give some tips on to how to get through that and just how to get through Torghast in general, because from my experience and as of this video, I completed layer 8 as Windwalker. This footage is layer 5, but up until layer 3 or 4, it's generally pretty easy and you can get through with just following basic mechanics. But once you get over layer 4, you start running into those enraged timers and you got to be a bit careful. So just wanted to give some tips. So tip number 1 for me at least is don't be afraid to blow all your cooldowns. You'll see in some of the footage here, I go through Karma. I picked the Venthyr Covenant, so I have the I guess the Blood Monks in a sense, and also Zune, and I use them all consistently. Torghast isn't timed. There are some time mechanics as far as some assassins would come and pretty much gank you if you're AFK or just waiting for a bit. So that is something you want to watch out for because they are pretty strong. And there is footage of one of the bosses, which is an assassin here, that I kind of got lucky because I did panic a bit, but I was able to kill him. And even Touch of Death is a great one here because it's on you can make it a relatively short cooldown with some of the anima powers that you run into. But don't be afraid to just use everything you got, because I personally rather wait 2-3 minutes for all my cooldowns to come back up than have a death and walk through Torghast, especially some of these later floors that are just exhausting to walk through. Tip number 2 is use Paralysis when you run into enemies. Some floors have some of the harder hitting enemies. They're, I guess you would say, like the mini bosses before each floor's boss. Sometimes they're together and you can't taunt one away without aggroing the other. Paralysis works on them, but you have to remember that it'll only work until their enrage timer gets, I think, to about 10. So if you do paralysis one of them, you have to make sure you kill them in time or else they're going to break paralysis. But you can use that to CC one of them and kind of go from there. Another thing that I found very useful as a tip, I didn't use it so much in this footage because I found this layer to be pretty easy for me because I got lucky with a lot of the powers. But use your portal to escape from pretty much from dying. There is a aggro mechanic, so enemies in Torghast, including the bosses for each floor, minus I believe the last boss, which is on floor 6. But the floor boss, they're no different than any other enemies. You can technically run away from them and reset the fight. So unless you know you're just not going to beat them, which is I'll get to in a different tip in a second, feel free to just run away from them. So having the portal set up before fights is really useful to just reset fights and just escape, heal up, wait for your cooldowns, and hopefully just kill the boss then or enemies. Another general tip is when you go through your anima powers, and you'll see some of my choices here as an example throughout this video. My recommendation, especially for Windwalker and most likely any other damage spec, is just pick the anima powers that are gonna synergize with just doing as much damage as possible, because at the end of the day, you do need to survive, but all the powers and all your cooldowns, it ends up just becoming a damage race. So the more critical strike you can stack on, the more, touch of death, cooldown reduction, celestial power ups that give you more celestials, anything like that would just increase your damage. The another good one that stacks is the blackout kick. You can do it so it increases your damage of your rising sun kick or your fist of fury. That one's great too. Basically, pick all the powers that will make you stronger and make you do more damage in a short period of time. And this is one of the fights on screen, that one of the assassin kind of, I guess, mini bosses on the floor that you can run into. These guys are extremely hard and will kill you because they apply a healing debuff. So if you happen to get ambushed by one of them, just pop everything you have. You see me here spamming, clicking on Touch of Death because I don't have it keybound yet. Another general tip that and maybe not so much a tip, but just some advice from experience. Don't be afraid to just quit a run and start over. I've had runs that I become a little stubborn and I'm on floor 5 and I know my anima powers suck and I'm not doing enough damage and I have 2 lives left and every pull is pretty much a struggle. I've been there on the higher layers, and I'm sure you might have been too. Sometimes it's easier just to reset and start over and try again later, because at least for me, nothing is more frustrating in Torghast than spending an hour and a half struggling because you're getting crappy powers just to die and have to do it over again because there's nothing more demoralizing, especially with Torghast. And here I just walked into one of the traps, so that's something to be careful of because they will kill you instantly pretty much. But yeah, don't be afraid to just reset the dungeon and just try again. You can try again right away if you didn't spend too much time, or try again later. It's so good on your mental well-being when doing these runs, because at the end of the day, Torghast is interesting, but it's not that fun in that regard. So don't put yourself through too much abuse trying to get the soul ash for your legendaries. So just recognize if you're getting a streak of bad powers and the whole run has been kind of a struggle for you, don't be afraid to just call it quits on this one and start over, because ultimately that's so much quicker than just dying repeatedly and so much less frustrating. Another tip as we just wrap up the video is when you're going through Torghast, especially solo, try and pull small groups at a time, or maybe if you're feeling confident you have some good powers, maybe one of the mini bosses like littered around the floors, and some of the smaller packs of mobs, because we have great bursts as Windwalker, but outside of Karma, Dampen, Harm is good, Iron Skin Brew, and our stun, of course. We do run into survivability issues, especially in Torghast, because they get a little hard hitting. So just be careful of that, and don't be afraid to just kind of take it easy, because once all of our cooldowns, we just shred through things, which is really fun to do. But outside of them, we're pretty vulnerable. And just as we go through and kill the boss on floor 6, this is layer 5 again. Remember, just have fun with Torghast. It's an interesting mechanic. It's brand new to WoW, so it can provide some fun challenges, especially when you get a stack of awesome powers and you just literally mowed through everything in sight. It's pretty entertaining, but don't drive yourself crazy if you're having a lot of trouble. I do it solo because I enjoy the challenge and it hasn't been possible yet for me. But don't be afraid to just find a group or some friends to just help you run through and get the soul ash, because Torghast isn't exactly balanced or fair. So don't get too bummed out if you're having difficulties or someone else is saying it was so easy for them. Just have fun with it and look for help if you need it. Well, thanks for watching, and hopefully this helps someone out there get through Torghast, or maybe some of the footage showed you a thing or two about some sick monk moves. So take care. Thanks for watching.